How's it going out there? This is Feature Mind. And so I watched two debates recently. One was with an atheist named Godless Engineer versus some Christian. And the other one was an atheist named Aaron Ra versus, I believe it was a Muslim or something. But the thing that they had in common, both the Christian and the Muslim, is that they both had their debates revolve around the concept of the mind of God, and if physical reality is actually contained within this mind. And so I don't know if they both explained it correctly, but this seemed like both of the believers in the higher power were able to formulate a debate that looked like it had the atheists on their heels. Like, they had a hard time with this concept because they always think of God as some, they're thinking like, oh, it's somebody in a physical location, and who is this person? I don't know what they think God is, but it's like they just limit the idea of God to just like someone somewhere in a physical location in charge of everything. And then when the debate gets broken down to, well, what these two believers were saying, and they were saying like a concept that I had used before, where the mind of God could be what reality is. So basically, physical matter, the concept of physical matter might be actually more similar to like how when you dream, we can dream a whole world with physical matter in it, objects that you can interact with. And if anybody ever took the time in the dream to actually perform a science project on any of these objects, would you be able to actually test these objects and see that they're actual elements all in your dream? Would you be able to do that? Possibly. And so in this world, this physical plane is a chronological place called Earth that exists throughout the lifespans of many people that have came and gone. And this Earth stands the test of time. It appears like a place that's not going anywhere soon. Like, it's here. It's a permanent place that was put here. And the physical things that we interact with on this Earth could all be in the mind of God, including us. There's a scripture that says, "Do you not know that the Spirit of God dwells in you?" So, with both of the debates, it seemed like it was going very well with this concept about the mind of God. The atheists tried to counter the debate by trying to get the believers to say, well, where is this mind of God? Is it just floating somewhere? And it's like, you have to be able to respond to that stuff. Like, I don't know if the believers were able to properly respond to that, because it didn't seem like they thought out those parts of the hypothesis very well. If they couldn't explain, like when an atheist says like, where is this mind? Is it just floating somewhere in charge of everything without a body? I believe Aaron Ra was really stuck on this whole thing, like a mind requires a body. And it's like, well, not necessarily. Well, according to the Bible, I just shared with you in a video previously that it says that a human is made up of a body, a soul, and a spirit. And so the mind is part of the body, but it also says we're made of a soul and a spirit. And then another scripture says, fear not man who can kill the body but not the soul. So that tells us that according to the scriptures, when somebody is killed in the body form, that's a body death. But according to that scripture, mankind cannot kill the soul. Only, it says only God. Well, it doesn't say only God, but it says it implies only God can kill your soul, can like destroy both your soul and your body. It said only he who fear only he who can kill both the body and the soul. So apparently that suggests it's talking about the creator, because who else would it be talking about? So basically that scripture shows us that beyond body experience, there's a soul that apparently doesn't die when our body dies, because only God can kill, can destroy your soul. And so something lives on beyond our body, and so our body actually interacts with this physical realm on this physical plane, this earth plane, that is a chronological piece of real estate that is here regardless of if we're here and as an individual. So this earth plane, we can interact with all the objects, just like in the dream world you can interact with all the objects. So we don't know if the physical world that we're seeing is actually spiritual, or if there's more to what we're seeing and just on the surface level. So this whole place could be contained within the mind of God. Everything that exists could be contained within the mind of God, because, well, basically the atheists try to say, well, who created this mind? And it's like, you got to hit them back and say, well, first of all, who created your particle that created the Big Bang? Who created that? Where did those particles come from? Both debates, they kind of got into that, and it was just like, the debate was really both of the debates were really I believe challenging for the atheists, when you just break down this concept where they just try to say, well, God is just this or just that. It's like, no, God is unlimited. Like, he could be anything. And there's concepts like this where the mind of God and all that it seems to really challenge these atheists. And with the Christian versus godless engineer, it came down to godless engineer saying something like, well, who created the mind? And then the Christian was like, well, we don't really know that. But it's like, there's better answers to that. We don't have to just we don't have to like stop the debate at that point. We can go deeper. If an atheist challenges you on who created this mind, you can speak up and say, well, I can hypothesize about this. I have a logical response to that. The mind could be self-aware consciousness without a body, because nothingness exists as well. Nothingness in the beginning would have had to been nothing. So if there's nothing, this nothingness is a paradox of reality, because nothingness would require something to acknowledge that nothingness is an option of reality. Because for nothingness to exist, it has to be an option of reality for there to be nothing. That's an option, because there's either going to be nothing or something. So this paradox for nothingness cannot just be there on its own without something that is aware that nothingness exists. So when you close your eyes, you see darkness, and that means you still see darkness. And then you can even go a step further and say nothingness would be invisibleness. But then out of this paradox of nothingness requires something, because nothingness can just not exist on its own. It needs permission to, like, exist. Like there can't just be nothing. That's an option. Because what is nothing? That's something. Because that's the paradox. That's the paradox of reality, an infinite moment of self-awareness. And that's what I would describe or hypothesize about how this nothingness could have been in existence, just by being self-aware that it is nothing, and be like, what am I? Then it turns out this nothingness was not nothing. It's actually something, and that something is consciousness. And there couldn't be anything else, really, like just that one thing that we consider God. That's all there could be, is God. And then out of this nothingness, he was able to create everything. But I would argue that everything would have been created within the consciousness of this self-aware being. Everything. It would be a mind without a body, is what I would theorize, basically. And it would be everything. And everything would be contained within this consciousness, this self-aware consciousness. It's not somewhere. You can't just point it out like they try to say, where is this floating mind? That the atheists were like, where is this floating mind, this floating consciousness? Aaron Ra was just insisting that it requires a body to be consciousness. And it's like, well, a godless engineer was just insisting that this consciousness had to be in a specific location. It's like, not necessarily, not necessarily. It doesn't necessarily, it can be everywhere and everything, this consciousness. And neither of the believers were replied to the argument that neither of them had a response about how could this consciousness exist beyond, like how did it come to be? Neither of them were able to answer that. And it's like, yeah, I would suggest you just think deep about this concept, and you'll probably come to the conclusion that this consciousness had to have been self-aware, unless you can come up with a better logical hypothesis. I mean, self-aware, it came out of this paradox of reality, and everything's contained within this consciousness, and that's all there ever can be, is this consciousness. Now, what we are is a part of everything. Would be a part of this consciousness. It says the Creator spoke everything into existence. Everything contained within this mind, this consciousness. And I would theorize that it would be similar to like how we dream, but this is a chronological reality, and I believe there's other chronological realities. Like this Earth plane is a place that exists beyond your individual lifespan here on this Earth. But when you leave this place continues on. It's a chronological place that exists with or without you here. But just because you leave here doesn't mean you're done, because our soul, like the Bible tells us, our soul goes somewhere else. So there could be multiple places like this that are chronological. It's a foundation that doesn't move. It's here. This Earth is going to be here. And then wherever we go after this, it could be a realm where, well, we're not even going to get into that. I think we've covered some of those concepts before. That would be like a whole nother discussion. I believe we've touched on it before, but let's not get too far off the subject of this video. But yeah, basically, that's this concept of the mind, of everything dwelling within this consciousness of God, and rethinking about what do we think God is. Like do you believe he's just in one physical location? Or, well, here's the thing, when we breathe air, as air just what science says, or is it the breath of life, like Adam was breathing in, that made him a living soul? So is air more than what science tells us? And that's probably going to be another video as well. I'll probably do that one on my Patreon channel and my Feed Your Mind 2 channel. So stay tuned for that. But yeah, so this concept of the mind of God is just, I believe it's getting somewhere with these atheists. And if we fine tune it, I believe that they're not going to be able to defeat any type of debate with a believer in a higher power, because I mean, it's just the debate breaks down the discussion to a critical point where it becomes your Big Bang versus God. What can you explain? Who can make more logical sense out of those two things? You're either saying that everything existed from a Big Bang. Where did these particles come from? You got to hit them back with that hard. You got to, if you're gonna use this concept, or even get to these deeper concepts, because any debate with the atheist should always lead to this. You should always challenge them and force the debate to that. Where did these two particles come from, or whatever? Make them explain how the universe started in their mind. Like, I mean, not in their mind, but in their what is their hypothesis about how the universe? Make them, challenge them on that, because they can never answer how the Big Bang started. And a lot of them try to dodge the whole Big Bang thing. They just like, oh, that's not what I believe. I don't believe a particle blew up or two particles or anything like that. It's like they keep on trying to move the goalposts and be like, well, I don't believe that. Well, what do you believe then? What are you saying? That is what you believe. If it's you're saying that everything came from some type of random incident that required a particle that you're saying expanded. However you want to break it down, it doesn't matter. This is what it comes down to in a nutshell. You're basically saying everything started from some type of incident that involved an element or a particle that somehow was there. Where did this particle come from? Did it have to be conscious? Was this particle conscious? Or was it just some random particle that just decided to expand? Like, what made it expand? Where did it come from? How was it there? You got to challenge them on that real hard. Then they, like I said, they try to hit back and say, well, where did this mind come from? First of all, no, it doesn't require a body. It wouldn't require a body. This mind, this consciousness, it could be self-aware, and that's how it came to be. And we're all contained within this consciousness. So, like I said, it's pretty interesting to see that these debates are starting to happen and revolve around this concept of the mind of God. I'll try to find a link to this debate and leave it in the comment section. Otherwise, I'll leave something else for you to check out in the comment section and description box. I'll try to find the one with godless engineer versus this Christian, that and how we use this concept of mind of God, and did very well using it. So I'll try to find that and leave that in the comment section. I'll also leave links to my social media and my other channels. And if you want to donate to the channel, you can donate as little as $1 to help keep things going here at Feed Your Mind. So please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Thank you for your support. Thank you for tuning in. This has been Feed Your Mind signing off.